I don't know. Keep that on.
That one can stay on as long as it needs to.
Keep that.
Right, what could be that important?
I'm already on Delco Dispatch. I'm already looking it up.
You guys are live.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. I will call the May 27, 2025 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors to order. I will note that the board did meet an executive session this evening at 7 p.m. where we discussed the following litigation matters. A zoning case related to a sober home on First Avenue, one zoning case related to the appeal of a non-conforming use, and another zoning enforcement action of a commercial use in a residential zone. With regards to personnel matters, we held a discussion regarding the hiring of an administrative assistant for the codes department. With that being said, Mr. Neese, please call the roll.
Mr. Altieri,
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap, Ms. Chanlis,
Here.
Mr. Russo is not here, and Mr. San Francesco.
Here.
Your engineer, solicitor, and manager are here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. We'll now move down to section 4, moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. With this being the day after Memorial Day, let's keep those men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can have this meeting here this evening in our thoughts. And we'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move down to section 5.1. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francesco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Section 6, public comment for agenda items only. If there's any members of the public who wish to provide any public comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And I will say for the record that there is no public comment. Section 7.1, can I get a motion approving the minutes from the May 12, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francesco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Section 8, reports. 8.1, report from the police department. Chief Lunn, do you have anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add.
Thank you very much. 8.2, report from the fire department. Chief Young, do you have anything to add? Thank you very much. 8.3, report from the public works department. Mr. Sharretts, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, I do have a question for you though, Mr. Sharretts.
Okay.
On the report, I'm just curious, on page 2, under road maintenance, you have a paragraph on the very last paragraph that says, although just repaired last month, additional damage was done to the grass medians along St. Albans Circle near St. Albans Avenue by vehicles. The medians again were repaired and reseeded so they would look good in time for the Circle at Sundown event in May. Question I have for you is, do we know if this is, do we have any video surveillance, if this is the same vehicle and or what occurred?
So it was in a different location in the medians, so I don't believe it to have been the same vehicle that had happened again. I don't know whether there's any video surveillance of the activities happening. As a general rule, it tends to be as if somebody is either deliberately driving over it by making a left out of the Rite Aid there, and then not being able to make the sharp turn since you're not allowed to make a left there anymore, and they wind up going over the median, or it's a large delivery truck that's, quite honestly, I don't know why they're driving over, but you can see on the cement where the mud marks are afterwards.
Okay, and was it just the landscaping that was damaged, or was any concrete damage?
No, there was no concrete damage. It was just the grass and the mud that was kicked up. So again, we went back, we filled it in, reseeded it, and put straw down, and I think it looked good for a Circle at sundown.
All right, perfect. I would just say the only request I would have is that we just continue to monitor that. If it is serial individual who was upset with the improvements over there and is purposely damaging that. I just think it's important for us to keep track of that and let the police department know and see if they can pull anything.
Yeah, so if anything happens in the future on that, I will contact the chief and we'll investigate it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
8.4, report from the codes department. Mr. Reczek, anything to add to your report?
Mr. Reczek could not join us this evening. He was having technical problems, so he did not have anything to add.
8.5, report from the finance department. Mr. Barbine, anything to add? Thank you very much. 8.6, report from the library director, Ms. Caruso, I don't believe is on. 8.7, report from the township engineer, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. Just one quick update. The stormwater project in the Upper St. Albans neighborhood, which is Lewis Road, Cayley, Horton area. They had completed the pipe work previously. They came back today and have begun the last curb work, fixing the last inlet. And then they're gonna be working on repaving the roads or repairing the trenches over the course of this week and next week. And that project will wrap up.
Perfect. Just have one question for the Meadow Preserve. I thought I saw in here that we got the HOP permit. Is that correct?
We do, yes, we have the permit, and I believe Public Works, you guys had authorized them to purchase the bollards for that.
When is that going in?
Well, we've had a challenge with the bollards. We decided to buy the used ones.
Mhm.
And we thought they were going to be done in May. Looks like they won't be done using them until July. So as soon as they're done, then we will move forward. Got it.
Any other questions for the township engineer? Okay, 8.8, report from the township manager, Mr. Neese.
The only thing I have to add to everything is one of our summer's interns started today, and he seems very sharp. And I think Tom's very excited because he's working with Tom, and so we're moving forward with that. He and I spent a good bit of the day together going over some finance stuff, so
Whatever Tom needs.
yeah, we're
Yep.
going to try to get it all done.
All right, any questions to the township manager? All right, section 9, payments, 9.1. Can I get a motion approving the certificate of payment request number 1 totaling $253,712.25 for Jurek Inc. associated with the Upper St. Albans Stormwater Improvements Project as approved by the township engineer, leaving a retainage balance of $146,258.75.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Section 10, 10.1, I've reviewed the bills and I'll make a motion to approve the bills on check register dated May 27, 2025, totaling $226,513.64.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Section 11, developers release, 11.1. Can I get a motion approving escrow release number 1 totaling $1,040,667.98 to Aronimink Golf Club for the Aronimink Golf Club pool relocation phase 2, leaving a remaining balance of $956,570.45.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Section 12, 12.1. Can I get a motion approving the $100 refund to Anastasia with permit flow for a permit application review fee after it was determined by the Township Code Enforcement Officer that a permit was not necessary in accordance with the current Township Code?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor San Francisco. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 12.2, can I get a motion accepting the COSAR's number 207172 proposal from Institute Form in the amount of $40,999 for the work done to clean, remove roots and reline 229 linear feet of stormwater pipe in the Upper St. Albans area?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor San Francisco, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Is there any board discussion? You guys want to flush this out, Eric or Steve?
Well,
You guys like that one? Come on.
so,
Dad jokes now.
oh my. at the location where we started the flow and put in the new lines over in the upper St. Albans area to handle stormwater, there's a pipe that leads into that. During the construction, we came to the conclusion that there may be some leakage from that pipe into the ground. And so it was recommended by both the contractor that was doing the job and our engineer that we should consider sealing that pipe to make sure that the water was in there. We still think there's groundwater around the pipe, but this will make sure that the water that's in the pipe stays in the pipe and isn't coming out. And so that is the purpose, and that's the reason why we want to move forward with this.
Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 12.3, can we get a motion to consider sending the accessory structure ordinance to the county planning department and the township planning commission for review? And if the revisions are favorable, approve advertising for board action.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor San Francisco and seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Mr. Sikora, do you just want to do a quick overview of this, sir?
Yeah, this was largely initiated by Mr. Reczek. There's a lot of instances of residents having to come in before the board of the zoning board, the zoning hearing board for different applications. One that sticks out or comes to mind immediately is front yard fences. We have the ability to put front yard fences in as a resident in Newtown in the residential district, but you have to get special exception approval. It costs $800. You have to come in, you have to have a hearing, you have to hire somebody to do all kind of diagrams and help you with the application. And that's a particular one where the staff identified that we can set some objective criteria that satisfies the concerns of the township. So the height limitations, make sure it's objectively not within the site triangle, so it's not blocking somebody leaving their property from viewing oncoming traffic, things like that. That can be handled at the administrative level, not overburden the zoning hearing board that could focus on more pressing matters. So things such as that, things that fills in some gaps, makes some clarifications where issues that come before the board over and over again that are always granted. So that's what it is. It's just a reworking of what's already
So
there.
this is gonna help residents and
Oh.
our zoning, but keep codes in check.
Correct.
Still,
Correct. Make sure all the safety requirements are still in play. It doesn't get rid of any safety requirements. It just streamlines the process and makes things that are
more
have
customer
become
friendly.
routine in result, make them more routine in process. That's all it is. And then, so what will happen is it'll go before your planning commission and the Delaware County Planning Department. To be published, people, will be able to view it. People will be able to make comments on it. They'll make recommendations. If they like it the way it is, you come back and we'll just advertise it and you'll just announce a hearing date. If they want some revisions, we would come back and say, all right, let's have a discussion about this.
Any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Section 13, board comment.
So I have one, in regards to some safety issues we were talking about with roads and stop signs. Surrey and Rodney, and then the avenues. Are we anywhere with that? I know we've had some discussions about putting the stop sign at Rodney
Correct.
and Surrey, and that's kind of what your recommendation.
I think that is the recommendation, that T intersection, you would add the one
Right.
stop sign there, right, as we discussed.
And then the avenues, all of Fourth, we talked about that there's all stop signs at first, second, third, but none at Fourth. Doing all those would be the recommendation, or are you still looking, or?
So I believe, I don't think it's officially formalized, but I had been out there and looked at it, and I put with amongst the staff, we had talked about it, that keeping all of the intersections in that neighborhood as a consistent configuration where they have the stop signs one direction and the through in the other is probably the most logical path.
And just finishing it with Fourth.
Finishing it,
Because first,
correct.
second, third all have it.
Yes,
And-
then you drive through and you have a consistent feeling through
Right.
the neighborhood.
And
yes.
then the other thing is looking at no parking on all the streets coming in, because the residents have brought up fire trucks can't get in there. I know the chief, you've probably been back there, that there's staggered parking on all that and maybe looking at the no parking on one side. Was that one of the?
I believe that was one of them. Yes, that was actually, when I drove through that neighborhood, it has exactly the same feel as my own personal neighborhood, and we have no parking on one side of the street. And that way you're getting, you're still providing the parking in the neighborhood, but you now have a consistent travel path.
And that was more of a safety issue, all the ones coming, other streets coming in, correct?
Correct, yeah. So you will have, if you have a consistent parking lot, then you don't have the zigzags, the
Right.
fire apparatus can still get through. But you do still have a situation where people have to yield to get through. So it does have a calming effect as well.
And Steve, have you talked to George and Chief about, or you'll get to that and then get to Rick?
No, yeah, I think that George and Chief and I all agree with that recommendation. So we'll work, if that's the board's direction, we'll work with the solicitor and get this put into place into an ordinance that we can get before you.
Yeah, if we can, Supervisor San Francisco and I were talking about this before the meeting. If we can move on this, if we can get this for the next one, I think that's, what we would like to see here, as
Okay.
opposed to having it wait out even longer. So we can get the ball rolling.
So if you want us to go ahead and advertise that, so I'll do it in two separate ordinances. I'll do the stop signs as one ordinance. I think that's less controversial, and you'll probably get less feedback, so that can just be done and put aside. Parking on one side of the roads may cause some people to have different opinions on that, because which side is it going to be?
Yeah.
We got to select a side. I don't know,
Yeah.
we can make a recommendation. What my suggestion is, we advertise the stop sign ordinance. It's a week out. We could just get that done. We'll come to you with a proposed ordinance for the one side of the street parking. And then you can decide whether you just want to advertise it, or if you want to engage the neighborhood, or if you want to.
Well, I would
Look at it
love the
yourself.
chief to be involved in that,
Yeah.
both chiefs to be involved in that
Both
chiefs.
conversation,
Yeah.
because of ambulance, police,
Yeah.
and fire are the three main things I know all those neighbors were concerned about getting down those streets that we heard collectively in the meetings and stuff like that. I know, Chief, you've been back there.
So we'll bring a proposed ordinance before you approve it for advertising, so you can see what it looks like. Maybe different sides on different streets.
Rich, let me ask you this question. So do we have to, the vote to advertise, we can't give you authorization to do that now? We have to wait, 2 weeks? Or,
Well, I mean, frankly, we can't put anything on tonight's agenda for you can't authorize the expenditure of money tonight, because it's not on the agenda tonight.
but you'll have it prepared and ready to go for the next meeting then?
Right,
Okay.
but for the stop sign ordinances, right, we could just have that ready to, all set up, ready to go. You say advertise, it'll be done at the very next meeting. For which side of the road or one side of the
That'll
road
take longer.
parking, that might be a little more complicated. We'll bring in an ordinance, but you could take a look, and I don't know if you want to just advertise it and that be the notice, or if you want to have some sort of community involvement with that process first, because that's a little more impactful, I think.
I will say this, I would prefer that for the parking ordinance, look, it's either left or right side. I'd like, as Paul said, Supervisor San Francisco said, everybody who this is going to be, from the safety community, to come with a recommendation. I don't want us, with all due respect to everybody up here, we're not in that area. I want a recommendation from the staff and from the safety community saying left side or right side. I do think we should have a conversation about how we notify those residents prior to that ordinance coming to us, because I do think it's important for them to provide us with that feedback too. And I don't want it to be, oh, we saw it on the agenda sort of thing. So I think we should have a conversation on how we're going to do that. But I think it's important that it comes to us with a recommendation.
So is the board okay if I take this approach? I'll get together with our emergency folks. We'll come up with a recommendation. I will then open up a public meeting for those folks in that neighborhood, and then we'll come up with a final direction to bring to you as the board.
And for the 4 streets going in, it's about 8 residents,
I think that's about right.
right?
Yeah,
They
it's
live
somewhere-
on those
Yeah,
4
yeah.
streets.
Yeah,
So-
it's not a lot. There's some blocks that have none,
Right,
and there's a couple blocks that do have people that face, their house actually faces the other direction, but they
but
do
they're
have a
on that street,
driveway.
right.
So we'll work through that.
I just do want to point out, because that's the streets, when you say coming in off of Media Line Road, the ones that go.
All go
Or
into.
perpendicular
Yep.
intersection with.
Correct.
However, during some recent zoning hearings, we've also heard from other residents on those streets parallel with Media Line, that they're also having issues with parking that's causing pinch points, and that they're very concerned about emergency vehicles. So you want us just to focus on those perpendicular streets right now, or do you want us to try to look at this more holistically?
So the issue with that neighborhood is a lot of them don't have driveways. Or they have 4 or 5 cars, like, at least the incoming streets, we can deal with that now. I think the long term with all the avenue streets, there's some houses that have no driveways, and if you know, that's gonna be a whole different can of worms coming in.
Yeah.
It's getting in the neighborhood that's the problem for emergency and everybody else. Once you're in, you can ride on someone's lawn and go, I know you don't want to do that, but you can't do that coming in off Media Line, right? Yeah.
All right, so we'll
Yeah.
focus on this. those
I mean,
four.
I don't know what the
No,
other.
no, I agree with that, because I
Yeah.
think, I mean, look, I grew up on Valley View. I remember all my neighbors being up in arms when, you know, they started to randomly enforce that, you know, parking on the one side. And it's, you know, to the point that was made about 4 or 5 cars. It's not one person collecting cars. It's because there are now families that have 4 drivers or 3 drivers, where before these driveways were only designed to hold, you know, back in the day in the 50s, it was 1 car house. So I think that it's gotta be broken up. I think that we focus on, as Supervisor San Francisco said, those streets, Malley and Morton and all those other ones, Gilbert, and then, you know, have a conversation about the holistic neighborhood.
And then it's easier to kind of transition
Yeah.
as
Right.
well.
So you're-
That way everyone can kind of figure out what happens when you only have the limited parking spaces.
Your next agenda will have authorized advertising for the stop signs. And then we might be able to have a discussion about that side of the road parking, but there's not gonna be anything on the agenda yet.
Steve, you okay with that?
Absolutely. I know what you want. At least I think I do, and we're going to move forward in that direction.
You guys good?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any other board comment? Section 14, public comment. Please go to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
I do have one more board comment before you go. The daily event at Nell was, if no one saw it, it was a fundraiser for a resident that has cancer, and the neighborhood got together. You want to see a community event come together for somebody? Police, fire, every neighborhood, it was absolutely amazing. And all volunteers. I know they raised a lot of money for a good cause. But if you wanted to see what our town's like, that event was superb. It was packed and just an amazing event. And I applaud all the volunteers and everybody who spent time up there and did it for a resident in need. It was awesome.
Mr. Glazer.
Please, green, just push the button.
Got it. Nathan Glazer, 3538 Haley Road. Apropos of the last item, the parking on the avenues. I got the same problem in Upper St. Albans, and what's good for them should be good for me. When I drive, Horton, Lewis, Aronimink are all choke points, the same problem. People park on both sides of the streets when they have social events, or they just park on both sides because they're unconcerned. But there are days a car cannot get through those streets, much less 2 going in opposite directions. Now, if it's a good idea for those people, it's probably a good idea for us people, because we have the same problem. Those people can't get there any better than there. So why not view this holistically and say, we're going to make a township-wide policy to guarantee all neighborhoods are sound in parking to permit the flow of urgent apparatus, urgent traffic, and solve it that way rather than bit and piece it, because it's the same problem. Why? I mean, maybe it'd be separate ordinances, but philosophically, either we should be committed to having traffic flow, which is not impeded by parking on both sides, or we're going to say, do whatever you want. But the two in different neighborhoods seems incompatible.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Thank you, Mr. Glazer. All right. Seeing no more public comment, this meeting's adjourned.